Hey everyone, welcome to Wargaming Parrot. I'm David and today's video is all about Substrate. Now you guys have been asking lots of questions about Substrate. I often get questions in comments, we get questions in our consultations all over the place. So I thought rather than just having a comparison video between bars and Substrate, I'll do a video all about Substrate covering everything. Why you should use it, how you use it, the different types we use, we recommend, and also the common myths around Substrate that people like to talk about. The first thing we'll start with is why would you want to use Substrate? Got your bars in the bottom of the cage, you're happy there, the bird seems okay, never goes down there anyway, so what's the point? So the first thing I'd like to say is when you have Substrate at the bottom of the cage, it does make them more inclined to go down there because it's more interesting. It's also less harmful on their feet. Bars can cause some damage to birds' feet if they're on them constantly. If they're not on them a lot and not walking on them, it's not a problem, but if they do, it can cause all sorts of minor sores and injuries. It's also very good for foraging, so when you've got a substrate base, it encourages natural foraging behaviour. You can also provide substrate in sort of foraging trays outside the cage if you don't fancy using it there, and it encourages them to peck through. You can sort of sprinkle seeds and all sorts of things, and it's lots and lots of fun for them. It's also very easy to clean. Now you wouldn't think so, but I'll talk a little bit about that later on. Substrate is also more natural. It kind of simulates a more natural environment that they may have in the wild, because obviously they're in a cage, they're in our houses, and we want to give them the best environment possible. So if we can make it more natural and fun for them, it's better. It's commonly used in lots of zoos, it's used in aviaries, it's also used in farms. So I don't see why you can't apply that and use it at home. Generally, to summarise, the reason we like to use Substrate is it generally provides a much better environment for our birds, and it doesn't cost much extra, and it's just generally something we prefer to do. That was why you should use Substrate. Now we're going to talk about how you should use Substrate. The very first thing you'd like to do if you want to use Substrate is generally remove the bars from your cage. Some cages are easily modifiable, others not so much, but they all come with a tray. So generally if you buy the right sort of cage, Substrate will be easily usable. Again, as I said, you can provide it on a foraging stand or on a tray outside the cage if you don't fancy trying it in the cage. You can also put a tray on top of the bars, which is something a lot of people do when they're giving it a try. How do you maintain Substrate as well? So you've got your Substrate base, what do you do? What's different about it from bars? Not that much different actually. So when you're having Substrate, you want to be maintaining it daily. So that means you pick it in the morning for any poo or any sort of bits and pieces, and you pick it in the evening for any vegetables, so you don't leave them lying around and rotting overnight. On top of that, just like you would with bars, you want to do a deep clean once a week, which means tipping all the Substrate out into the bin, cleaning out the base, and then replacing it with fresh. It's as easy as that. Just twice a day for a minute or two, picking, and then cleaning out once a week. And you'll find you have a much cleaner and much nicer smelling and pleasant environment for your bird by doing this. So I thought it'd be useful for you to see Substrate in action. So we're using our favourite Substrate, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and we've just got a base of Substrate to our foraging stand, so they can play on top, they can move down there and chew it. Scampy loves doing it. Olive is currently modelling this lovely product here, not sponsored in any way, but they like to sit on it, they come down, and also if they do produce any droppings, we can literally just pick it up, put it in the bin, easy as that. Next up, here's an example of Olive's cage. We've got Substrate on the top again for the play stand, and then we have it at the base of the cage. So as I was talking about before, all you need to do is twice a day pick out any bits of food, pick out any naughty bits out of there, and then you're done. Again, here's some other examples. You've seen this in my cage videos. We've got Scampy and Pickles in their cage. Down the bottom you can see we have all the Substrate there. We have little areas clear for the water just in case lots of stuff comes down there. If you look at the base here, we have a ladder to give them easy access to the floor, some floor toys and lots of fun things they can do while they're down there. Moving over to the boys' cage, it's much the same setup. You've got some floor toys, you've got the Substrate down there, so they can go down there, they can forage. The boys especially love going down because cockatiels are natural ground feeders. We sometimes put some herbs down there or some bits and pieces for them to forage for. A quick costume change which may indicate what our favourite type of Substrate is. If you do decide to go for it, you get little tokens on it where you can get sort of goodies like this. It's not sponsored in any way, I just thought it'd be cute to wear this, and same sort of colour as Olive as well. Before I go into the types of Substrate, there's two hard and fast rules you want to apply to any sort of Substrate you use. One, they should all be dust free. And two, they should be untreated. You do not want any sort of chemicals on there unless it's specifically designed to help with the Substrate. I'm going to be talking about our favourite types of Substrate now. This is kind of a giveaway, so let's just pan down and have a little peek. Our favourite type of substrate, our number one, is Easy Chick or Easy Bed. Sophie's sponsored by Easy Chick, I am not, so I like both Easy Chick and Easy Bed from the same company, and they're both very good. It's all natural wood fibre bedding and it's dust extracted. Easy Chick is actually treated to take away any bacteria, so it's actually even safer for your birds. Easy Bed is not, but it's still perfectly safe to use. It comes in this huge bales, which makes it more economical to buy. Some people, pet shops do split it up, but we prefer to just buy the huge ones. We like this the best purely because of the sizing and because the birds like foraging through it, chewing it and enjoying it. My number two type of substrate is called Carefresh. This is also recycled material. It's made from wood pulp and it's also dust extracted. Now, the reason this is quite good, one of the benefits of Carefresh is it's very soft, so if you have a bird with additional needs, it can be very good on their feet, especially if their wings injured, they can't fly and they fall. This is very soft and very good. It also makes a very colourful bedding, so that's quite useful. And it's just generally one we used to use before we swapped over to Easy Chick. We still keep it because we like to use it in foraging trays, and it's just a very good all-round toy for the substrate. Our third recommended type of substrate is simple, plain, white, shredded printer paper. Now this is awesome because it's very budget friendly, so if you want to give substrate a try, you don't want to invest in Easy Chick or Carefresh, it's something you can give a try. Just put it in a shredder, chop it up, shred it and basically use it. You can try it in a foraging tray or you can pop it in the cage and see how they get on with it. The next types we recommend are untreated pine shavings or beech chips. Both of these are very safe substrates, they're quite good. They have some minor disadvantages, but they're both ones we'd recommend you give a go, and they're maybe more readily available where you are. There's a couple of substrate types we wouldn't recommend, and the first of which is corn cob and crushed walnut shells. Now this is natural material and it's generally safe for your bird. However, if you've heard those myths about substrate getting mouldy, this is probably where it's come from. Corn cob and crushed walnut shell will need to be changed a lot more frequently, and if you're willing to do that, it's fine, but generally it is more prone to mould and bacteria build-up. The other type of substrate that is quite commonly used that we would especially not recommend for birds is sand. Now, it may be okay for lizards, but it's not okay for birds. It can cause crop impactions, it also blow around and cause irritation, so if you can avoid using sand, I would recommend it. It's not one of our top recommended substrate types. I've gone through why you should use it, I've gone through how you should use it, I've gone through different types you can use, so I wanted to talk about some of the myths around substrate now. Soup and Fish have popped out because they fancy joining me. The first myth I want to talk about is that substrate is dusty. Now if you've watched the rest of this video, you'll kind of realise that that myth is a bit silly, because any sort of substrate you should be using will be dust extracted and dust free. So substrate should not be dusty unless you're using the wrong type. The next myth is that substrate can get mouldy very quickly and it's prone to bacteria build-up. Again, if you're using corn cob and walnut shells, that may be true. For every other substrate, that should not be the case at all, purely because it's just not prone to it, and if you clean it regularly, it will not be a problem. Another commonly held myth is that substrate is difficult to clean. Again, I've shown you what you have to do when you're cleaning it. It's literally just picking it a couple of times a day and changing it once a week. In the long run, it's actually easier to clean because bars will have build-up of droppings, they will get dirty, even rusty if you're using the wrong types, so it is actually easier to clean than bars in the long run. Another commonly held myth is that your birds will eat the substrate. Now if it's made out of all natural materials, this is less of a risk, and birds chewing it is great. A scampi regularly chews the substrate. However, if you do notice that your bird is regularly ingesting substrate, that may indicate a health issue, or that you're using the wrong type, and that maybe you should take it out for a little while or change to a different sort of substrate. But generally, birds will chew on it, and that's something to be encouraged, but they shouldn't be eating it. My final myth is that substrate is expensive, and yes, I would say that substrate is a little bit more expensive than just putting newspaper at the bottom of a tray or whatever, but you could just use shredded white paper, and again, it's not that expensive if you compare it to giving your bird a better quality of life. Just to give some context before I round up this video, I used to be someone who was well into bars. I believe bars were the only way to have cages set up. Sophie convinced me otherwise, and since then we've just been using substrate all the time. It's just lovely to see the birds foraging, especially the cockatiels. They love going on the floor and foraging because they're natural ground feeders. The conures chewing it and playing with it, and all of them just generally enjoying it. So this is one of the reasons I thought I'd make my bars versus substrate video and this video to help you make a choice. This video isn't about disparaging bars. They're around. I personally don't think they're worthwhile, but they're not going anywhere, and if you use them, there's nothing wrong. It's just maybe you should consider another option. So guys, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful and answered all your questions about substrate. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching. Take care and have a great day.